What's going on, guys? Thanks so much for tuning in. Very exciting video today. I've been really working on getting this video out for quite a few weeks now. Not too long ago, I put out a video kind of showing this film emulation I was after, how to get that yourself, and then a little bit of shot matching techniques. And then after releasing that video, a lot of you reached out to me asking if you could get your hands on this PowerGrade. Now, I spent a lot of time researching and just developing this look over the past couple weeks, and even before then, before I even planned on making it a purchasable item. So if you do decide to go purchase this PowerGrade, please know that it is greatly appreciated. I spent a lot of time developing it and researching the certain elements I wanted to include to make it feel more authentic, and then of course send it off for testing through multiple colorist friends of mine. So if you were part of that process, again, thank you. Let's take a look at what this PowerGrade is all about. Now, one of the reasons I love making these YouTube videos is that I'm able to answer questions that a younger me would have had. And sometimes I'm able to provide tools to actually help you get there faster. And in this case, that's exactly what this PowerGrade is. Essentially, it's a tool set, it's a pre-built node tree that guides you through the entire look creation process. A lot of the grunt work is done. It's really just up to you to use the tools that are already there and help fine tune the look you're after. I think the way I've laid it out really lends itself to a creative process. So like I said, if you're interested in purchasing it and downloading it, the link will be found in the description below. The rest of this video may seem a tad bit slow. We're just going to be jumping into the PowerGrade, seeing the node tree, how it's laid out and what each step does, and then how to actually use it to get the best results out of your footage. So let's jump in. All right, folks, so here we are. This is the PowerGrade. So if you're interested in downloading it, the link will be in the description. But if you just want to follow along, you're still going to learn a lot just by going over how to use this, the structure of it, and some of the tools I have in place here. Essentially, it's just a process of taking our image from a log space, which you can control here in this third node, which is actually just a CST. And the CST takes the log image. In this case, we have input gamma of RE log C, and it is converting it to Cineon film log. And the reason we're doing that is that, one, I think the LUTs really behave really well, the film LUTs that is, whenever they are coming from a Cineon log space. So that's why we're converting it right away into something that's going to be uniform throughout the entire process. And then we have the halation node, which here, just to save you some troubles of having to go and change your input gamma every time. Inside of the halation compound node, we have the same kind of CST right here, but it takes it from Cineon log film into linear, and that's whenever we get that special effect of halation there. So you don't have to worry about changing it here. Once you change it in that first initial node, you're done. And so then it kind of takes care of it throughout the rest of the process. So the reason I do have these compound nodes here for grain and halation is that it's pretty complex steps, and it would really just clutter up things whenever you're looking at your node tree. So rather than do that, you can just dial it all back here by going into your keyer. Right here, I have it set at 0.571, kind of just like around half. I dialed it back wherever I thought looked good. And then it's got a few other adjustments on top of that. So inside of it, it's got its own changes, and then on the outside, it's got its own changes. And then also this way, if you wanted to disable halation or your grain or this bleach bypass, which we have done here, I'll go over that in a second. All you have to do is just disable that one node and you get rid of the halation. And you can kind of see how nice it makes the image look. So if you're going for something more natural, it may not be necessary, but personally, I love the way it looks. So then we have the glow node, and this just kind of gives it that soft, dreamy effect, which I really like. And again, you can dial it back however you want. You can control it in the open effects panel, or you can just dial it back right there. Then we have grain, and the reason this is a compound node is because I have a few extra steps involved where I sharpened it and I've added the grain, softened the grain, and then getting a little bit of film manipulation to it. So that's why it's going to look pretty natural there. And you can disable that or enable it. And you can also set all of these to shared nodes. So if you wanted to disable it on one clip, it'll apply to everything. So that's super handy, and that's just a really efficient workflow for working with smaller projects or bigger projects with hundreds of shots. And then we have a separation node, and this one's very minimal. You're really only going to see these tweaks in the waveform, maybe a little bit in the shot. But this is just a technique I use using kind of the RGB mixer and a few little primary controls to get a little more separation It's a small step, but it's something I like to do just to get a little more out of the image. So then we have our primaries, and if I disable this, you'll see how warm the image is. It's not too heavy on this shot in particular, but again, this just kind of goes off of that last node, that separation, where we continue to push things around, and I pretty heavily tinted the shadows here. That's my personal preference. If you don't like it, I have it set to halfway opacity, but you can also turn it all the way up, crank it to 1, or you can disable it entirely, and now you can really see the difference there. But dialing it back really gives a nice little effect and blends the two. So that's why I have some of these set up the way that I do. Then we have our lift and pull, and this kind of brings in that film dynamic range, or at least helps to do that. So here, by using these shadows controls and the highlights controls, I've dialed in a pretty soft look, which you can see there. Just kind of brings out a little bit more detail in the shadows as well as the highlights. And then next up we have the film LUT. And here you can see this is that Cinean log space, and so whenever we apply the LUT, as well as a few extra little curves, it really does a lot of nice things to the image. You can see we've crushed it just a little bit to make it a little softer, because in film you're not really going to have true black, so we've eliminated that here, and then added a slight greenish, reddish warm tint in the highlights. And then next up we have saturation, and I've kind of mixed saturation and color boost just to give it a nice look, because I think color boost also kind of paired with saturation gives it a nice little effect. So then next up we have hue versus hue, but it's a few different hue versus curves just to kind of get it in the ballpark I liked. And this continues to add separation and give some uniformity to the color palette in the scene. So again, here you can turn this off, turn it on if you like it. But it's all optional. All of these nodes, that's why PowerGrade is so useful, is that you can dial back the intensity of any one step of the process. And that's super handy for this big set of parallel nodes here. What I've done here is I've created a few look modifiers that you can use on your images. So here, this one's kind of just preset. So this is softening the skin. And this is not the best shot to showcase it, so I'll come back to that one in a minute. But this one's very fun. This is the bleach bypass. And usually whenever you apply a bleach bypass, you introduce a few other problems you may have to solve with some of the highlights maybe clipping or the shadows being too dark. And that's also why I've created another compound node here, because if you go into it, you'll see that I've kind of taken care of all that work for you. So now whenever you apply that, it is going to change the contrast, but it's not going to just blow things out, and you're going to have saturation in the ways you want to see it. And it kind of gives it that silver look in the highlights, which you can see here. And on this image, you know, it looks absolutely killer. So that's disabled and re-enabled. And even here, again, you can go into your keyer and dial it in or out to your liking. So if we dial it back, you can see we're kind of just turning off the opacity of that node, that group of nodes rather, and it's a really cool look. So there you go, that's how that works. And then we can just reset it, and it doesn't affect what's inside of it. All right, now we'll go into the desaturation node. This one, I've used the curves and some other tools in the primaries just to carefully desaturate the image, just because sometimes we don't want such a colorful image. We want more of like a muted look. So here you can control this one. I have it kind of overpowering at first. So again, that you can go into your gain and your key output and dial it in to your liking. That key opacity is super handy for dialing in your looks. And then we have two different types of warmth. The first one right here, the warm curve, this is more of a green warmth, and then the second warmth is more of a red warmth. And there's, you know, warm means a whole lot of different things, and so I've kind of just broken it up into two different types here. So that top one's green, the bottom one's more red, and you can pair them, you can isolate them. Again, you can change the opacity. It is totally customizable. And then lastly, we have this cooler curve, which introduces some more green and blue hues. So that's it. So let's go ahead and go through some of the shots I have in that demo you guys have seen and what steps were required to take it to where it ended up. Because honestly, it's really not a whole lot going on. So here in this one, this was shot on a C200. C-Log3, which is probably what it was shot in, and RE-Log-C have a lot of commonalities in their gamma curve. And sometimes you get a better result leaving it at Log-C, which is why I have that one, just because Log-C is the most universal and it is probably one of the best color spaces to work in straight out of camera. So that's why I've left it there. Didn't even touch it, didn't even change it to the proper gamma, and we still have this great result. So this is just the PowerGrade, and then I turned on a bleach bypass, and then I increased the saturation a little bit just to really bring out a whole lot of color separation there. So that's about all I did for this image. Another one I liked a lot was this shot here. This one did take a little bit extra work. A lot of this look is just built around properly balancing. So the input, this was shot on red, so we have it set to red log 3G10. That's our input gamma, change it right there, and the PowerGrade takes care of the rest. And I didn't really enable anything else. Let's just go ahead and disable these nodes, and let's disable our pre-look. So this is the PowerGrade, you know, just dropping it on. And it goes to show like there is a lot more you can do with your images. And so here I can tell that the contrast isn't where I wanted it. So this is the work I did in that pre-node just to dial it in. Added a little bit of contrast, pushed around my gamma, my lift, and my gain, and gave it kind of the color palette that I wanted, and just brought it a little bit warmer and cooled off the shadows slightly. So then over in custom, didn't do too much here, just continued to refine that contrast, but I wanted to do it after the conversions and everything, so I had more control of the black points and the white points. And then all I did was just take this node here and kind of brightened up her eye. So you can see there's not much extra that I did. Really, it's just fine tuning the contrast on a shot by shot basis. So this is another really fun one. And this one starts to capitalize on dialing back some of the intensities of these compound nodes. So you can see the halation node is dialed back a little bit, the grain, the primaries, as well as the bleach bypass. And then I have this warm curve on there, which you can leave it on, turn it off. And here I just like the way it kind of brought the green out in those highlights. I thought it complemented the blue sky and the silhouette really well. And then turn this off. That's the primaries work right there. I'm telling you, is literally just playing with the lift, tinted it blue just slightly, played with the gain, brought it up a little bit as well as the gamma, and that is it. So disable it. Yeah, it's just a change in contrast. Nothing here in the custom node. All I did was dial back on the bleach bypass compound node and then enabled this warm curve. So yeah, that's it. These are some of the images I was able to get very simply. Again, if you're interested in purchasing this, I have it for sale on my site. I don't like to be like a pushy salesman on here because I love just, kind of giving back. But a lot of you, if you may have seen this video in particular, kind of going over that film look that I was creating, a lot of you really wanted that kind of in a PowerGrade. So I took some time and sort of professionalized what I was already working on in the background, and made it more of a usable product, a user-friendly product. That you guys can purchase, download it, and install it into your Resolve software and get to work grading with this PowerGrade. And it's all just kind of built off of my personal taste and a little bit of reference images from other film emulations and different movies shot on film. So I took a lot of inspiration from that. And again, just to show you how powerful this is, I'm going to go into my stills library or PowerGrade, depending on how you're using it. And we're just going to apply that 16mm PowerGrade. I shot this in C-Log 3, so we're going to convert this to C-Log 3. That's that. You can see it's a little bit overexposed. So we're just going to go into our offset and our primaries in the pre-look node. Just going to pull this down slightly. Make sure we're not clipping any blacks. Pull down our midtones as well as let's do our highlights right here. Now I think it is a little bit too cool, so I'm just going to warm it up slightly. And that's not too bad. And then in the custom node, I'll just desaturate it slightly. Or actually we can go into bleach bypass and we'll enable that. That's pretty cool. I think I would like to pull back on it just a touch. That's not too bad. And then in the, let's see, we'll enable this custom curve. Not quite what I'm looking for, maybe the cool one. Let's mix that cool one with this warmer red one. Yeah, so you see, I mean, just there's so many results you can get just from enabling and disabling different things here. And then you can go in and create your own modification here in the custom node. So importing is very simple. All you have to do is go into your gallery and then you can right click and add a new PowerGrade album because you want it to be available across all your different projects. And then in the album, you're going to go into right click, import, and in your downloads, you're going to have that folder there. It might be a zip file, so you might have to decompress it. And so we're just going to click that DPX and then import it. So now you can just right click and hit apply grade or a pin grade, depending on how you're working. But let's go ahead and make our camera to Cineon conversion. Let's make that a shared node. So we're going to save as shared node. And then we'll kind of have all these clips selected again. We'll middle click on this image or right click and hit apply grade. And so now every one of these clips, they have that shared node there. So all the color space transforms are going to be consistent. So if we made a change in this clip and we made this RLogC into Blackmagic Design, well, actually we have to unlock it first. If we go back into the CST, we can change that RLogC into Blackmagic Pocket 6K. Now you see it changed the log a little bit. It changed that curve, and you can make that change on any clip as long as you're changing that specific shared node, and it's going to reflect across anywhere that node is applied. So the possibilities are pretty endless. And again, to all of you who have been messaging me on Instagram, just asking when this is out, I'm so happy to say that it's finally here. I've had such an amazing response. So many messages asking, when can I get my hands on this? Is it going to work on 8-bit footage? Does it work with Sony log footage? Yes, it works on everything. The only change you really have to make out of the box is input gamma. You select your camera log space here in the color space transform. Or if you shot in Rec 709, you can set it to Rec 709 and do any contrast adjustments you need to here. Or if your camera's not supported, if it's Z-Cam footage, you don't necessarily have to select a miscellaneous log format. You can set it to Rec 709 and then add a different node here and do your contrast here just by adding contrast and changing the pivot. It's totally up to you. So please let me know if you have any questions, drop some comments below. Again, thank you guys so much for all the support, and I can't wait to see what else 2021 has in store.